Hello, welcome to the AROWS Inactive Duty Members Training. Our goal today is to give you, the member, an overview of what is to come, as well as give you the tools to complete your portion of the program within the AROWS system. With UTA being so busy, it's oftentimes hard to get everyone in one place, so we appreciate you tuning in for this quick training session. So let's jump right into it. As you are now aware, AROWS Inactive Duty goes live on 1 October 2015. We are set to incorporate both Group Inactive Duty, otherwise known as Drill or UTA, and Individual Inactive Duty into the Air Reserve Orders Writing System. This is a major transformation for the Air National Guard, but it will ultimately ensure that you, the member, have an inactive duty system that is not only reliable and accurate, but also financially accountable and audit ready. But, as an added perk, it should put money in your bank accounts in an even more timely manner. So let's begin by discussing Group Inactive Duty. I think the first place we should start is to explain what it is that we are streamlining by this implementation. In effect, what we have done is taken the old NGB 633, which you know as the drill roster, and made it completely electronic. Now our current process is a pretty tedious one. Military Pay and Finance produces the rosters for the entire base. The result is that beautiful drill roster POC announcement you may have been lucky enough to hear the days preceding UTA. Your unit must then send someone to come pick up the unit's roster. Drill occurs, roll is completed, and all initials and wet signatures are obtained before sending your finalized roster back to us at Finance. We here at FM then input the entire wing's rosters, which can take a few days, and finally, once a payment processing date occurs, a leave and earning statement is produced, projecting a date for payment. After examining our current process, the goal of the AROWS implementation was to streamline as much as possible. In the new AROWS Group Inactive Duty, a person appointed at your unit called an Inactive Duty Administrator will produce your unit's drill roster from AROWS. No more waiting on us at Finance, and no more drill roster POCs. Roll call will be performed as usual, and the unit's attendance will be returned to the Inactive Duty Administrator. The Inactive Duty Administrator will then input the attendance directly into AROWS for your unit only. Once input, it flows electronically to an Inactive Duty Attendance Certifier within your unit. They will examine the input for accuracy and electronically sign the roster. This will send it through AROWS to an Inactive Duty Certifier, likely your commander, that will electronically sign to approve the drill roster for payment. That day, Military Pay will download the file directly into the Military Pay system to process for payment. You will receive a leave and earning statement with a projected payment day just as you normally would. And that is essentially drill within AROWS. To wrap it up, not a whole heck of a lot will change for you as the member. Come to drill as directed, get on the drill roster, and get paid. So let's move on to the individual inactive duty portion. This will be what will have a direct impact on the way you as the member receive your payment for duty. Individual inactive duty is anything that you would have turned in an NGB 105 for. An example of this would be makeup drills, proficiency training, or additional flying training periods. The key thing to remember here is that the individual inactive duty has become a three-part process. Prior to doing any type of individual inactive duty, you must start by creating an authorization. This authorization will line out what type of inactive duty you will be performing and when you will be doing it. Once you have an authorization, you can perform your duty on the scheduled date. Once your duty is completed, just like annual training, you will create an e-certification for the duty within AROWS. So, when completing individual inactive duty, remember authorization, then perform your duty, and then certification. So again, this is what we will essentially be making electronic. The NGB 105S and all of the signatures required on it will be completed through AROWS. Before we get into specifics, let's review our current process. It was fairly unorganized. If you were doing a makeup drill, you submitted a base Form 14 through your unit. PTs or TPPAs were requested through the budget office. And for those of you that do AFTPs, they would be scheduled through your unit. Once scheduled or requested, you would perform the actual duty. Once completed, you would fill out an NGB 105S, obtain the proper wet signatures, and submit it to Finance. As you can see, there needed to be some order and continuity added to this process. As stated before, the new AROWS individual and active duty will do this by first requiring an authorization for all individual and active duty to be created through AROWS. This will be created and electronically signed by the member. However, AROWS has created the functionality for an appointed inactive duty administrator to create and sign for the member if they are not available to do so. Once the authorization is created and signed, depending on the type of duty, it will potentially flow to the unit commander or HARM office for what we call a hard hold review. They will electronically sign to approve the document, and it will flow to an appointed supervisor within AROWS for final approval. Once approved, you have yourself an authorization for an active duty. You can now perform the duty. Once you've completed the duty, you will go into AROWS to e-certify your duty. Only you as the member may complete this task. Once completed, it will flow to an appointed inactive duty attendance certifier within your unit to verify you in fact did the duty you claimed. From here, depending on the type of duty, it could go to the HARM office for that hard hold review. Once either the attendance certifier and potentially the HARM office have certified the duty, it will flow to an inactive duty certifier for final approval. Again, similarly to group and active duty, it will likely be your commander or flight chief. Once they sign electronically, it flows to those friendly faces in military pay for export into the pay system. A leave and earning statement with a projected pay date will be projected as usual. So when it all comes together, we see the flow of the authorization here in the orange, to the certification in the purple, and on to military pay for payment in the green. But that's it, both group and individual and active duty within AROWS. Okay, moving on. As if it wasn't difficult enough for everybody to change the process, the DoDI 1215.06 was updated to also change the terms for various inactive duty types. A unit training assembly is now a regular scheduled drill. A Buda and Ruta, also known as a makeup drill, is simply a rescheduled drill. So a lot of the terms are just sensible, but it may take some getting used to. Please keep this chart handy to avoid any confusion along the way. Now, although we have addressed some of these key individuals, allow me to address the roles individually. We already discussed you, the member. You play the key component in creating, modifying, or canceling authorization requests and doing your duty certifications. The supervisor will approve individual inactive duty authorizations. An ID administrator is, in my opinion, the key to making this all work. As we covered before, they will produce the regular scheduled drill rosters and input the attendance. They can also input individual inactive duty authorizations when the members are not available to do so. HARM approvers will be appointed for the purpose of reviewing individual and active duty associated with flying statuses. The inactive duty attendance certifier serves as a reviewer of both the regular scheduled drill roster and individual inactive duty certifications. They are confirming that the duty claimed was actually performed. And finally, the ID certifier is the accountable official that reviews and approves the regular scheduled drill rosters and individually duty certification. Okay, now is the fun part. Let's dive right into it. This will be what you, the member, will see within the system. This screen is what you and the member profile sees within AROWS. The top section stating Statement of Duty should look familiar. Nothing has changed here. This is where you will e-certify your active duty such as annual or special training. The second item you see is Inactive Duty Individual Authorization. This is where you can create, modify, cancel, or track individual authorization requests. These will be what you will need prior to performing any individual inactive duty. And lastly, below that is your inactive duty individual certification functions. Here you can create, modify, cancel, or track your individual duty certifications. Keep in mind that without a completed authorization, you cannot create a certification. Remember, authorization, then duty, then certification. So let's do this. Let's create an authorization. Here's a quick overview of the flow to jog your memory. It flows from the member to the hard holds, to the AROWS appointed supervisor for approval. First step is to obviously log into AROWS. You will find your inactive duty individual authorization as discussed in the prior slides. Click on Create. The next screen will ask you to select the type of inactive duty you will be performing. For our purposes, we will select a rescheduled drill, but you can see them all listed below. Next, we will select our workday utilization code. For this example, we will select KA for prior service. It will ask you if you are on flying status. Answer accordingly. Obviously, I've selected no. The following question is if the member will be performing duty at a location other than their home station, which is listed above. You should know the answer to this question at the time of your request. For our purpose, I will select no. Finally, and most importantly, you will select the amount of drill periods you will be performing. Keep in mind that there are 4 hours per drill period and 2 periods allowed per day. So if you were making up an entire regular scheduled drill, you would select 4 periods. To make up 1 day of drill, you would select 2. I've selected 2. It will then prompt you to enter both the original duty dates of the regular scheduled drill and the actual dates you will be performing the rescheduled drill. Finally, select Save and Route. This will send it to any hardholds and ultimately to the appointed supervisor for approval. Once back at the member menu, you have a few options to identify where your authorization is within the system. If for some reason you created an authorization but never routed it, select Awaiting Action. This will bring up those authorizations. I would also suggest checking here for authorizations that you have difficulty signing. If for whatever reason the signature did not take, the authorization should be here. Once you as the member have signed your authorization, you can also see who it is routed to. Go to the member menu and select In Progress. It will populate a list of your authorizations en route. You can pull them back from routing to your level or select Track to see where it is. Let's select Track. What you are looking for is the word Routed under the Action Type column. Look under the Routed To column to see where your authorization is routed. As you can see here, this authorization is awaiting action by the supervisor. And finally, you can always review all of your approved authorizations. Go back to the member menu and select the approved link under the individual and active duty authorization menu. This will bring up a list of all of your approved authorizations. Okay, so getting back into it, we should now have an approved individual and active duty authorization. We can perform the duty on the scheduled day. Once completed, we need to complete an individual and active duty certification to get paid. Again, here is an overview to refresh your flow of the process. This next part should be a very familiar process if you have ever e-certified your annual training. Simply make your way into AROWS and find the member menu. This time you will go to the Inactive Duty Individual Certification section and select Create. Authorizations available will be displayed. Please keep in mind that these will only be available if the authorization has completely routed through approval and after the duty has been performed. But once available for certification, select Create. The next screen will take you to the details of the certification. You will utilize the drop-downs to select both your time in and your time out. Once selected, you will choose Yes to concur with the statement, I affirm as the member the information provided is correct and accurately reflects duty performed. I would review this one last time to ensure all of your information is accurate. If so, select Save and Confirm. What you see next will again be pretty familiar. A grayed out sign button will be displayed. AROWS will begin to run the signing software. You must wait until that button is no longer grayed out. As we all know, this can take a few minutes. Be patient, and once it's available, select Sign. Just like in the authorizations, you can track your certifications. For those certifications that you created but never routed, look under the Certification section and select Awaiting Action. If applicable, a list of those documents should appear. To track certifications you have signed and routed, again return to the Member menu, look under the Certification section, and select In Progress. This will take you to the routing list. Remember that if you are looking for the last action type routed, we can see here it is awaiting action by the ID Attendance Certifier. And finally, you can see your approved certifications. These will be the certifications that have made it successfully through the entire routing process. Essentially, it means the payment should be pending. An LES should be available on MyPay within a day or two. Once your inactive duty certification is complete, it will generate the new ANG 105. This is your source document for payment. No need to turn anything into finance because everything has been done electronically. So that's all I have. I hope that today you have a better idea of what is happening and a source that you can use to accomplish your part of the process. We understand that this will be a huge change for all of you, and we want to make this transition as smooth as possible. Feel free to call us at Finance anytime for assistance. That's what we're here for. I hope that this has been helpful, and I look forward to speaking to all of you soon. Thank you, and hey, have a great day!